Going forward, um, Rusty, I was hoping you could weigh in on this a little bit too. Why is governmental engagement important? And maybe you have some examples of how decision makers listen or use the information that they hear from constituents when shaping their agendas.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, under term limits, which I have my own feelings about, you've seen an explosion of lobbyists, people of my ilk. I always like to say that lobbyist is somewhere between lawyer and loser in the dictionary, but you better make sure you have one. And so I think the government engagement gives them a lot of information. Here's what I always tell new legislators when they come in, and I believe the same for our efforts. A good legislator will try to gather as much information as they can on the topic from both sides. And then you filter that through your own personal philosophy and belief system and hopefully come out with a position that you feel comfortable as a legislator proposing. And that works if there are folks around them who will offer them information on topics from both sides in engagement to be able to make those decisions. And so our job is to make sure that we're communicating our position to those members, because if we aren't, the other side of whatever particular issue you are on probably is. And therefore, when the legislator goes in to make their decisions, sometimes they're making a decision without all the information that they should have, especially when we feel as passionately as we do about the issues that we're working on with Line 5 and clean energy and those things. We have to make sure that legislators have the information. And that's why I think government engagement is so important.
Thank you so much. That was great. So then just a little more specific to the GLBN, why members should get involved in this kind of work. So the Great Lakes Business Network has over 100 members, employs over 3,000 citizens, spans 4 states, 2 countries, and reaches consumers in all 50 states, as well as contributes to the $62 billion Great Lakes school economy. So with that in mind, we have a very large reach and a very big impact, which allows us to potentially drive a lot of change on the issues that we work on, particularly those with the Great Lakes that are so interconnected with our economic prosperity. So some things that members have been doing already, which is really great. Attending in-person meetings, such as the one coming up in Glen Arbor with decision makers, writing letters to the editor. We've had several published recently, which has been really great in different publications, particularly surrounding Line 5 right now, but definitely with opportunity to grow there. Social media posts. Sleeping Bear Surf and Kayak does a really great job of always including the Great Lakes Business Network or their messaging in their Instagram and Facebook posts. So I just wanted to highlight that, and other members do that as well. But the more tags and that kind of thing that we get brings a lot of people towards the network and the issues that we work on. And then also providing member quotes and statements regarding announcements or things that have happened, events, of that nature that we can use in either posts or press releases and that kind of thing. So we are in this space, but hoping to grow. Okay, so I'm sure you're all convinced that you are reared up and ready to engage. So now what? So just some quick steps. First, this one seems obvious, identifying your legislators and their relevant contact information. So you may know who your rep is, but not how to get a hold of them effectively. So I just wanted to provide some visual resources. These are all from different government websites that you can search for your legislator by address, your home address, and then it will pop up with their profile and their email and phone number. So that's the first step. Then develop your message and tell your story. So key components here: keep it brief, Be specific and communicate exactly what you're asking. Mention your constituent and district, and if relevant, your customer reach. We wanted to highlight, for example, the Cherry Republic Orchard report, which goes to a wide customer base and often includes messaging on these issues. So you could, for instance, say, my customer, I have access to this many customers on a regular basis, and I'm getting feedback on these issues from them, or that kind of thing. Include the relevant economic basis and specifically how the network issues impact or threaten your business, employees, and community. Provide your contact information for a response back if you're sending an email or leaving a message. And lastly, thanking the legislator for their time. And then step 3, we wanted to cover some different ways to maximize your message reach and different outlets to kind of get your message across. So phone call to staff, whether that's a representative, governor's office, municipality. Email outreach, a lot of these legislators have forums on their website or profile, or you can send a direct email. Drafting a letter to the editor. Like I mentioned, we've had a lot of members engage with this recently, and it's been really great. We've been getting a lot of publicity from this. Providing a statement or quote, member meetings in person, public events and conference engagement. So if you're at an event and you see either a business leader or a decision maker being able to initiate a conversation about the issue and communicate your stance on it is a great thing, especially if you can corner them or that kind of thing for a few minutes. And then lastly, editorial board meetings or reports for newspapers can be an effective way to shape a story as well. And then just a few more helpful tips. I'll try to keep this short, but take initiative and clearly state the issues. This is for when you're in a meeting or having this conversation. Clearly state your issues, your point of view, and actions. Bring information. This is one thing we're trying to improve access to for our members. So fact sheets or handouts for support, which we can help provide. Mentioning other people in your coalition or network who are also supporting your stance, as well as other decision makers. Pausing to allow them to respond and ask questions. Connecting the issue to your legislators, district, or constituents, which is relevant, especially to our network members who these issues so greatly impact. And then close the deal, ask for their stance, and ask for a commitment if you feel that that's appropriate in the situation. Thank them for their time, record notes, and follow up with a thank you and providing any other information that they may have requested. So I would like to turn it over to Rusty to weigh in on a few more points and then pause for questions.
Sorry, I had to get off mute. Well, thank you. That was good. All of those are excellent points and excellent tips. I've been asked to talk about 3 particular questions. The first being, how can business leaders most effectively move the needle with elected leaders? All of the things that were just talked about in terms of how you do meetings and what you need to do, those are all the right things to do. The thing that I always like to stress is the need for a relationship with the lawmaker or the decision maker. And this is where I think a lot of advocacy can fall short, in that if I go in, and this can be difficult depending on the level of a legislator that you're talking to. I deal with the state mostly, and so a lot of my bias comes from the fact that I deal with the state. So just keep that in mind as I go through this. But the relationship part of this is very important. These are folks in your community, and there are folks that you're going to see at a regular basis. And the idea is to try and build a relationship with them, and then it's not always about the issue of the day. Now, sometimes you go do a fly-in in Washington, and you're going to get this one chance to meet with Stabenow or Peters or the congressman from the 2nd District, wherever it is. It may be your only chance that year to talk to them. And I think all of the points that were brought up are exactly correct on how you need to engage. Others, state senators, state representatives, local officials, if you're dealing with city or township officials. The idea here is to try and build some kind of a relationship with them before you're asking for something, but also while you're asking for something. And so that, to me, is the key as to how to move the needle. And one of the ways that you can do that certainly is the coffee hours. Most legislators will hold coffee hours in their district. They're often on their website. That is a little different than just a public meeting where you see them. This is your opportunity to go and talk with them. Part of building a relationship is figuring out what's important to them and talking to them about it and getting to know them. And I really love the part in the previous slide where you talked about pause and allowing decision makers to ask questions. One of the biggest challenges and mistakes that I see, and I'm guilty of this too, you have 30 minutes or 20 minutes to get your point across, and so you talk really, really fast and make sure you get all your points out, and then you can check off the box that you did it when you leave. And sometimes you miss a great opportunity to stop, listen, figure out where they're coming from. Any relationship is two-way, and you want them to appreciate where you're coming from, and I think you have to appreciate where they're coming from. And I think that can be helpful as you move forward. And all of the things that were suggested earlier, I think, become more impactful when there's a relationship with that decision maker. It takes time and effort, and I understand that, but there's also passion involved, and that makes the effort a little easier when you know that you're fighting for a cause that you believe in. The second question on aspects of advocacy that should be avoided, I think a confrontational attitude is probably the most unhelpful aspects of advocacy when you're engaging with them. I'm not suggesting that anyone should roll over and not make their points and make their points strongly and with vigor. But this idea of confrontation can be negative in the sense that they may stop listening. And so, again, it doesn't mean that you need to be soft or weak. It just means that you have to do things in a way that shows a collaborative desire to work together to find a solution. And I think that's part of the key to talking with those legislators and making sure that they understand. So I would avoid that confrontational approach, I think, that some take. And certainly in our current political discourse, confrontation seems to be the number one way to try and be heard. And I think it just becomes noise and not effective advocacy. On the best practices of developing an elevator speech, I sort of go back to my pastor in elementary school when I went to a small Christian school, and it was 3 points and a close. And the close was usually an altar call, but that's a whole different thing. But 3 points, and any advocacy that takes more than a one-page, bullet points, large type to try and get through is probably going to be lost. And so somebody once gave me a presentation. It was be brief, be bright, and be gone. And that is something that I certainly try to do when I'm talking to legislators about a specific issue. I want to have a one-page leave behind. I want to make sure that I have 3 or 4 points, a conclusion that is an ask. I think that's important. That was a good point on the last slide. And I think those are the best ways that you can move forward. I can go on for a long time and probably not be helpful, but I think the question and answer period can often be more impactful than just me talking. So I'd certainly be open to that.
I want to ask a question, if you don't mind. We've actually been in meetings where the confrontation has been initiated by lawmakers towards our members or towards the issue we're working on. And what is your best advice to get past that?
Yeah, I think it's a diffuse of the situation. Again, I'm never suggesting that we don't get our points across. And sometimes if it gets that confrontational or if it begins to escalate, someone in the room from the group can say, you know what, Representative, you're obviously passionate about this issue. We're passionate about this issue. We want to continue to have a positive conversation and ways to move forward. But it sounds like there might not be. And so I think the best thing for us to do is to end the meeting and maybe look at something in the future where we can talk. But we certainly don't want to get into a fight. We just wanted to come in and explain our position and really just sort of diffuse the situation and almost put them in a position where they're having to apologize for going confrontational. That would be that's how I would handle it.
Great.
I would not engage in an argument.
That's great.
And understand, the perspective that I bring to this too is I'm probably going to have to deal with them on another issue. And so you want to be careful about damaging relationships.
Yeah.
But I think the GLBN has to be mindful of that too. You may have to deal with them on other issues. And so you don't want to damage the relationship beyond repair.
Yeah. Are there any other
questions at this time?
Either I said nothing interesting or I said everything everybody was thinking.
I learned stuff, and I've been doing this for a while.
All right. And then we just wanted to point out some additional resources. We've created a new member materials Google Drive folder, and we'll be sharing that out probably later today. And then within that, we started a government engagement resources folder. So within that, you'll find examples of letters to the editor that our members have submitted previously, links to pages where you can do those searches to find your legislator and their contact info. We'll include material from this PowerPoint as well as this PowerPoint with tips for meetings and conversations with decision makers. And then going forward, we'll also be updating with additional resources like talking points, fact sheets, that kind of thing. So hopefully that will be helpful and provide a few examples of these things that we've been covering today.
One other thing that I want to put on folks' radar that are on, and then I'll send out a note as well, is we will be working with both Bill and Rusty to set up a meeting around the October 8th time frame where we will be inviting lawmakers either to a breakfast or a luncheon and have almost like a social gathering for state lawmakers and decision makers. So as those plans develop a little bit further, we'll let everybody know. But for right now, have October 8th as a hold on your calendar if you're interested in it.
And those are wonderful opportunities to have a lot of people in the room at the same time and just really make an initial connection. Those aren't where connections are made, or those aren't where you're going to get your points across and change somebody's heart or their mind. But these are excellent ways to get their business card. It's an excuse for a follow-up later if you're from their district and want to go talk to them. Certainly if you walk into a coffee hour and they saw you at the Lansing, drive-in day, those can be helpful things just to build those relationships. So I would encourage folks to attend if they're able.
Great. Well, like I said, we've been recording this session, which is really helpful. And I think every time we have meetings or we set up discussions with decision makers, we'll share this out so people can have a refresher. Are there any additional questions before we go ahead and adjourn early on this or the issues that we're working on? Great. Well, I thank everybody for joining. And if you think of anything later, feel free to reach out to Lisa, Jim, or myself. And we'll go ahead and get this loaded up on our YouTube channel where we have been posting all of the webinars, and then we will get it in the folder that Lisa will share out later today. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Lisa. Thank you.
And Rusty, thanks. All right.